All right, folks, how's it going? Another week over, a big week, obviously. It's only been a few days since the last podcast following the announcement on Tuesday. It was short lived in terms of the devil in the detail rearing its head, let's say. The square foot sliding rate. I think everybody in the country must know about the sliding rate at this stage. And again, I give credit to everybody in the campaign here because, like I said, I think maybe shortly after the podcast, shortly after the announcement was made there, we'll not get suckered twice. That 90-10 scheme that we talked about before, the devil in that detail made it a 60-40. Within hours, we were all over it here like a rash. And that is a real red face for this government. They can dress it up now whatever way they want, but they boobed here big time, and I think they know that, and they look to see now how they recover from that. And like, I'm not worried about rubbing anybody's nose in anything. All we are looking for is a scheme that we can work with here, and a scheme that's fair. So the sliding scale, bottom line, never was an STSI thing in the first place. It was something that was interference by the housing department that made it into that. Okay, so that's why we're not accepting it, quite simply. That the holiday homes, we know, was the other big issue there as well. Left behind, not happy. At the end of the day, I had this conversation last night with a couple of the senior officials that talked about, you've got the lease repair scheme. But at the end of the day, I said, you imagine yourself in Dublin there now, and you've got your nice wee holiday home in Mallinhead or Kildare or Melton or Rathmullen, sorry, wherever the case may be, right? And you're coming up to get away from it all, and now you're told that your house is Mica and you have no way out other than go for a lease and repair scheme. That lease and repair scheme forces you to be a landlord. That's not what you bought that home for. You're now going to be dealing with basically a council tenant, largely speaking. That's what it'll be. They'll be paid largely through the council, and you'll get a grant to get the house done up right away, and then you keep that house, which was meant to be your holiday home. That was what your dream was. That's what you bought it for, and you now are a landlord, and you hold that on for X amount of years. Either that, or you sell it with a payback on it or clawback on it, right? So I'm not sure anybody would see that as if it's better than nothing, it's just about better than nothing. But it's not where I feel anyway, or we feel as a campaign, that it should end up for holiday homeowners. So that will not be over. That campaign needs to continue. And then the RTB, a lot of confusion once again around the likes of that, and what to do about it, what they don't do about it. Can you go in there or not? I would suggest, right, I'm not in that situation, but if it's €90, which is what I'm hearing it is, I'd be having a good shot at it anyway. Get in there, and because what I'm led to believe is that it was more about ensuring that the home was used for the purposes of rental, as opposed to somebody maybe buying it and saying, no, and say it was for some other purpose other than that, a holiday home, for example, that there's no evidence of ever having rental in there. So in my conversation, I want to see this firmed up, but in my conversations, it looks like there is an opportunity to go back there. Check it out, and please let me know. Message me accordingly, or message the page. Can you get in there, and can you do it retrospectively? Okay, because there may be a late penalty to pay, but hey, that's a hell of a lot better off than a property that's not going to be recognised under the scheme. So check it out for yourselves, anybody in the buy-to-let sector there. Okay. Then we had the Tonight Show, so that's only a couple of days ago there as well, but naturally enough, the sliding scale dominated the show. I thought it was very scrappy, to be honest, in lots of ways. But Charlie was in very difficult for Charlie to sell something that's flawed, and that's the bottom line. So you're never going to come out the right side of it here. And maybe in his position, he's not in a position to stick his hands up and say this thing is flawed. But it got by them in the cabinet. Everybody missed the fact, and I did ask the fact. Greg Hughes asked it today. When did they know that the sliding scale was in there? The bottom line is, when did you know that you were signing a homeowner up to the average homeowner up to €65,000 of a shortfall here, and still at their audacity called 100% scheme? That is hard to swallow. That is what they have. That's the circle they've got to square, and they haven't done it yet. And hopefully they do. And we're trying to give them some ideas on ways around that. That gets them out of jail on that, to be honest with you, that we need to work on. And there's conversations around that too. But the bottom line is it doesn't work the way it is. And it's a shame because there was a lot more right than wrong in the scheme. And we do have the holiday homes. There's other stuff needs clarified as well. The RTB we talked about, some stuff around certification needs clarified and so on. And we will work that. But the scheme, it's a shame that it floundered here really on the rocks on one of the very first points that's in there. And that I think was just poor judgment on their part. Interference by the housing department, absolutely their fingerprints all over it there, and the minister should never have bought it. I think they threw him under the bus, to be honest. So then what did we after that? We had two ministers in Highland Radio. I'm not sure that happens very often, but we had the housing minister on himself, Darragh Breen. I didn't actually hear that. It was another calls at the time that was taking place, and then we had Agriculture and Marine Minister Charlie McConlogue. And then we had quite a few people. So listen, a shout out to Highland Radio. They have absolutely given us so much coverage and doing their best. And Greg was there, and yes, he has to be neutral, and yes, he's that's the job. But he made it very awkward for anybody to come away with anything other than the facts there today. I thought he'd done a really good job, despite I'm not sure how he kept it together, to be honest. But he did. Fair play to him. And then we had then Barry White up then yesterday from News Talk. I want to give a special shout out here to Aidan Houghton, the QS that I called at short notice, and he came in and first time talking to cameras or talking to reporters, that type of stuff. Thought he'd done brilliant, and he followed that up then with the wee video last night. Again, great. I was answering the call. Paddy asked him. He's done that, and it's out there now, and hopefully others will follow. Just giving an idea from a QS perspective how costings are arrived at, and his views on square foot rates that are relevant at the minute, and then also his views on the square foot rate, which really didn't add up. Paddy Monagle then, building contractor, I took Barry White up to Malhead to meet him. Good conversation as well. You'd have heard the diggers and the lorries in the background and Chambers coming in and out with the concrete there. They were just on the subfloors at that stage as we were up there. And then Noel Noon from Quigley's Point, homeowner, told his story. Lisa Hone, who's a big player in our Magic Media or Mag Media team here, which have really lifted the campaign for us from a Mica Action Group perspective. Lisa Hone from the Melton area talked as a homeowner as well there. And I think Barry done a really, really good job. So a big thanks to Barry, and a big boo to Pat Kenny. I have to say, consistent as ever. Took every opportunity to try and discredit everything that was said and done in Barry's report. Barry found himself actually having to try to defend the people at Donegal, and then Pat throws in then this one, but are you not from there or from that neck of the woods originally? Type thing, to almost discredit his own man in there. I think Pat Kenny's been absolutely disgraceful in how he has handled this campaign to date, and probably the worst bar none that I have seen, and that's at every opportunity he's done it. And this mentions, I'd like to know what kind of house he's in himself and how he would feel about somebody coming along to say, regardless of having worked hard to get what you've got, it's been taken from you, and half of it should do, or quarter of it should do, or some other design should do because it's cheaper on the exchequer. Not a chance would he buy it, but yet it'll be good enough for us up here. He'll learn that that'll not be the case. So, but listen, I want to go back to the big thanks to Barry. He done really, really well, and Barry actually contacted me today and in effect apologised for the way it ran, and I told him it certainly wasn't his fault the way it ran. Okay, but that was all good, and we tried to address that because we know that's down the country. We tried to address that the day before through the press conference. Now, first time doing the press conference, myself and my buddy Pat, and I thought Paddy done very well. Paddy brings in his side to it, which is going to be just the pure raw reality of it, and I think no man does that better. So it was great to have him on board there as well. But the girls all set that up with Barry Kearney there, heavily involved in that as well. And not the Barry Kearney, the QS, I might add, Barry Kearney on the campaign, and very much a stalwart of this whole campaign. So I think the feedback from the press conference has been pretty good. And at the end of the day, You're not going to change a Pat Kenny. He's got what I would see as a biased view on it. But I think for anybody that wanted to be open-minded, the press conference allowed them to understand why we are where we are, why we're asking what we're asking for, and why it's not just as simple as all the stupid stuff at this stage we have to read over. Why did you not go to the insurance companies? Why did you not? All the things that we've done so many times, right? So we have to try and not get frustrated, and we have to understand where they're coming from. They're not immersed in this. They don't know anything about it, and they're just asking the Paddy the Irishman questions type stuff. So, you have to forgive and move on in that sort of regard there. And hopefully the press conference helps a bit. So, what to next? Where does this now go to? The sliding scale needs to tuck out of there. That's the bottom line, and that is still the priority, and that is where it's at. We still have to go make that happen. We're working that in the background, trust as we are. And we're getting chat for it. It's not a case that we're being ignored. There's a lot of fleshing out of the frequently asked questions, so certainly there's a good stab at it, but there's a lot of detail missing in there, and there's going to be work in trying to flesh that out. That work has started, but there's more work to be done, and I think at some point then we'll use some type of flesh out of the frequently asked questions, and we'll organise something like that. We've got through some of it, but not all of it. Okay. The scheme needs developed then, so let's assume we get past, and I think we will get past the sliding scale issue. The scheme needs developed out then, ready for deployment. That's massive. It has to go through as a bill first of all. So you're talking, they'll kick this stuff off probably February time. You could be March, it could be April before that bill passes, and the old scheme stays in place right up to that until it's superseded by the new scheme, and then any benefits from the new scheme is paid back retrospectively. So at this point in time, when you're applying, or you apply today, it's the old scheme you'll be applying through, right? So as we're clearing that, the new one isn't live until it's rubber stamped and in law through there. So that bill is passed. So that's what it needs to be. And all of this is on the assumption, I'm saying, we're going to work all this stuff in parallel as if we're setting ourselves up for success and getting the thing up and running, because that's what people need and want. But that's on the assumption that we move this sliding calculator. And the reality is, if they fail to do that, the scheme is useless as it stands. It's useless and will not be accepting it. And what it boils down to at that point then is Paddy's working here day and night at the minute, getting people lined up if we have to go back to Dublin. Nobody wants to be doing that. But we're not walking away, and we're not cowing down, and we're not going to accept rubbish, and we're not going to accept something that is just not fit for purpose. Simple as that. And the last thing I would say to you is just, and sorry, I know it's a wee bit extended, this one, but there's a lot happened this week, this report here. But support and support each other. I got phone calls tonight there from people really, really distressed, and we need to be supporting each other. People need to be looking ahead and see what else they can do. Look, like Brenda Tierney Joyce, I just see set up a page there now around alternative build methods and stuff. Great, and that's the sort of stuff that people need support for. And don't worry, there's nobody going to be insulted by somebody taking initiative and going doing things. You don't need to be a campaign leader to go do that. Use your own initiative, use your own skills, pull stuff together, pull people together, and let's support each other through this. I think we will get through this, is my honest thought on it. Like everything else, we'll just have to work it to make it happen. Okay, have a good weekend, everybody, and talk again. Cheers.